Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation, Santa Rosa. We welcome each of you, those of you here in the sanctuary, as well as all of you online. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your personal and your spiritual truths, to question, to nurture your heart and mind, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your bigger questions. We welcome each of you. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope you will find ways to provide outreach to others in our congregation, community, and in our world. Newcomers are encouraged to visit the welcome table by the front door after the service, where you can get a name tag and sign up for our newsletter. Let's take this moment to acknowledge that our beloved sanctuary stands on the unceded territorial land of the Pomo people in Santa Rosa, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. Now, please stand as you are able and join me in reciting our covenant and mission statement. The words are on the back of the order of service and projected behind me. We pledge to seek unity in our diversity, to welcome and respect divergent opinions and beliefs, to listen to one another with open hearts and minds, to acknowledge our shortcomings and be quick to forgive them in others, and to keep our focus on our mission. Our mission is celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build another world. Today's message was originally presented by Reverend Dan O'Neill when we were called the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Sonoma County. Lucia Milburn will present Dan's message. Lucia is a former worship associate and is now active as a lay chaplain and as a member of the Right Relations team. I invite any of you who were members or friends here during Dan's ministry to just stand so we can recognize you. How wonderful that you have been with us all these years. Before we continue, if you haven't already, please take a moment to silence your cell phone. And now I invite everyone to take a deep breath and be fully present as we move into worship. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able to sing our opening hymn, Gathered Here. Robert and Sally will help us sing it as a round.
So we're going to sing this once through in unison and then twice through as a round.
If you have a harmony, throw it in.
God
Bruce Willis, aren't we glad to see you today? Will be lighting the chalice for us today. Bud Willis. I'll be. Okay. Our chalice lighting words are by Reverend Dan O'Neill. We are gathered here in one strong body. This morning, as we have done for thousands of mornings and for thousands of years, we gather together as a worshiping community. We do the same things we have always done for those thousands of years. We gather to offer each other strength, wisdom, insight, and compassion. We gather to comfort one another in sorrow, to rejoice with one another in joy, to explore the depths of life together and to share our collective gifts. We gather to minister to one another. Now we invite the children up for Time for All Ages. You can sing the principal song to welcome them.
Good morning, guys. Oh, we are tired today. I feel that. Well, it's so nice to have you guys here today. Today, instead of a story, I want to have a bit of a conversation with you if you're up for it. And it's about teachers. Who here has a teacher? Yeah, I'm guessing you guys probably have teachers. Yeah. What is a teacher?
Somebody who gives information and you learn from them.
Someone who gives information you learn from them. Absolutely. Very clinical definition. I appreciate it. Any other ideas for what a teacher is? Felix, you know? Same. Yeah. Oh, Jake.
A helper.
A helper. Yeah. A role model. What does it mean to be a teacher? Who can be a teacher?
Anybody, as long as you're teaching something.
Anybody, as long as you're teaching something. Yeah, exactly. But this is a bit harder. What makes someone a good teacher?
Someone who's caring and understands and just guides you.
And just guides you. Absolutely.
Somebody who knows that the class understands, not like just like writing a bunch of stuff on the chalkboard and they're just like, got it? Okay. And it just moves on. Everybody's like, what?
Someone who pays attention to you. Absolutely. Noah, what was yours?
Someone who doesn't put you into tension.
Someone who doesn't put you into tension. Absolutely. Xavier, what makes a good teacher? Maybe someone who can tell when you're not ready to answer a question. Absolutely. Well, a special type of teacher that the grown-ups will be talking about today is a minister. You guys know what a minister is. What's a minister?
Somebody who leads the sermon.
Somebody who leads the sermon. Yeah, they're the teacher of our congregation, of our church. They teach lessons about big ideas and beliefs and values. And part of the reason we come here on Sundays is to learn from the many teachers who share their ideas and experiences. But not everyone who teaches us on Sundays is a minister. People with all different experiences teach us things because it's important for us to learn from a lot of different teachers. In fact, one of the reasons I like to have you guys up here and I like to ask you a bunch of questions is because you teach all of us. even if you don't feel like a teacher all the time. You teach us every time you share a story, experience, a piece of information, a clinical definition of what a teacher is. And so I was wondering, does anyone here have a time where they remember where they taught someone something? A time that you were a teacher? It's tricky to remember. It can be anything. You want to tell us, Jake?
There's a lot of things, but like getting my dad to understand like newer math than
That is the perfect example, Jake. Thank you. We can be teachers all the time, and I love that example because, man, you wouldn't think they changed math, but somehow they did. Well, everyone here, not just us, but everyone here this Sunday has the ability to be the teacher. We can teach something to one another, whether it's about math or whatever it might be. So we're going to head back to the RE wing, and I think you guys are probably going to teach me a thing or two. But before we do that, let's tell everyone who we are. We are
We are an active congregation, as you can see by the list of announcements included with your order of service. You can also find upcoming activities in our newsletter. I would like to highlight a few items of interest. On August 7th, immediately after service, there will be a brief congregational meeting to vote on the contract for repairing our roof. We do need a quorum that day, so some lovely people will be fixing lunch for us. And if you would like to help with the lunch, either setting up or bringing food or cleaning up, please let's see, who are we letting know? I think it's Leslie. Please let Leslie know. We're putting together a welcome package for Reverend Dave, who will join us starting next week. How exciting. And you can contribute gift cards or wine or food items and just deliver them to the office this week. Deadline for donations is August 5th. Today, after the service, CUPS, the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, is inviting you to celebrate the Lammas service. They will be serving a bite of bread and a little conversation. So do stop at their table. The setup was beautiful when I walked by. This celebrates the first harvest. Let's see. There are many opportunities to participate in our congregation. Check out the Opportunities for Involvement tab in our website for other ways to get involved beyond Sunday services. Generosity is one of the spiritual values most of us feel is central to our personal lives, to the well-being of our congregation, and to the community in which we live. When we pass the offering bag during our worship service, we are making an expression of thanks for the blessing of abundance. Each week, we share our donation basket with a community group that needs our support. Today, we will be sharing the basket with the California Alliance for Retired Americans Education Fund. Dave Walker, one of the co-chairs of the Sonoma County CARA, joins us this morning to tell us more about the organization. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Linda. And good morning to everybody. My name is David Walker, and I am a member and co-chair of the Sonoma County chapter of California Alliance for Retired Americans, CARA for short. CARA is a nonpartisan senior advocacy organization. I'm pleased to be here today and want to thank you, the Advocates for Social Justice Committee, for inviting our CARA Education Fund to again be the recipient of your Share the Basket collection. CARA was formed in 2003 and is a statewide network of hundreds of organizations that educate and inform its membership, the public and elected officials, about the issues that affect the well-being of California's older adults, and mobilizes its members to take action on these issues. One of our top priorities is to improve, expand, and protect Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, not only for ourselves, but for future generations. One of the ways we do that is through our CARA Educational Fund. The mission of the CARA Educational Fund is to work for social and economic justice, full civil rights, and a better, more secure life for senior citizens, their families, and future generations. The CARA Educational Fund Board of Directors is dedicated to advancing and achieving just and equitable living conditions for seniors within the state and the nation. The Educational Fund, through the Elder Empowerment Workshops training and the Leadership Academy, provides training and education to seniors on critical policies and programs that support aging with grace, dignity, and independence in the setting of their choice. The Share the Basket funds that CARA has received in the past has helped to advance the Elder Empowerment Workshops training in Sonoma County, which offers vital information on how to take action to protect, expand, and improve Social Security, and also provides hands-on information and resources to elders about their rights as a hospital patient. It has also helped fund the Leadership Academy, which teaches leadership skills to seniors so they could be more confident and competent activists and advocates. CARA does its on-the-ground grassroots activism through local networks called CATS, or California Action Teams, in 17 regions of the state. Our Sonoma County CAT has been fortunate to have our monthly meetings here at UUC. Because of COVID, we've Zoomed, but we hope to have hybrid meetings from here in the near future. We meet on the third Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Our meetings are open to everyone. We invite anyone interested to take a brochure and get on our mailing list and come check us out at one of our meetings. We thank you for your support. Oh, that's yours.
I think you took some more of mine. Okay, perfect.
Too much paperwork.
I'm good, but I'm not good enough to ad lib. Thank you, Dave. Please be as generous as you can. And if you're joining us online, please look in the chat box or use our website to find the Give Now link. During the offering, you may light a candle to mark a personal milestone or joy or sorrow if you would like. But please wait until the ushers have passed your row to get up. Will the ushers and candle lighting assistants please come forward? join me in dedicating these offerings? The words are in your order of service. To the work of beloved community within and beyond our walls, we dedicate these offerings and ourselves. Our lay chaplain for today, Gail Shirley, will now read today's milestones.
Good morning. And as Linda just said, I'm Gail Shirley and I'm your lay chaplain for today. And in these turbulent times, when personal and social injustices hurt us all, many of us are feeling uncertainty and grief and sorrow. Each of us has struggles and joys to share with the congregation in order to receive comfort or share rejoicing. Healing in community healing in community is one of the reasons we come to church. We come to UU to feel supported and loved and to grow spiritually. The Milestones book is a place to share your joys and sorrows with the congregation. And before the services, the Milestone books can be found outside the sanctuary door. And after the service, I will be available if you would like to talk. And if you have concerns for which you would like a listening ear and some support during the week, please fill out a pastoral care request card, or you can email us at laychaplains@uusantarosa.org and we will be in touch with you. And these are the entries for this week. Aaron and Robert Hausenman are happy to share that their son Brendan just received his teaching credential from SSU for teaching high school history. Yay! Congratulations, honey. We love you, Mom and Dad. And after spending several months a year for the past 10 years, Kathy and Bill Staten are moving permanently to Pennsylvania. UUCSR has been the center of our life here, and we love you all and the glad times and different times we had together. Our hearts and loves go out to you. And Linda Harlow writes, much to my surprise and dismay, I have come down with COVID-19. It's pretty awful, but I'm taking the drug up at, I hope I pronounce this right, Pavlovoid, and I'm hopeful that it will shorten the course of the disease. Nevertheless, I urge everyone to take every precaution you can. And we all pray for Linda. And Judy Donovan's younger brother, Chet Bonham, died Thursday. He was a gentle and a generous soul who will be greatly missed. Also, Judy's dear friend of 38 years is in the hospital with pneumonia. Please include Jerry in your thoughts and prayers for healing. And I ask that we hold these sorrows and joys in our hearts and in our prayers. And I'd like to end with a quote from A Handbook for Happiness by David Hare. And he says, as I understand that other people in different life states with different karma have a different view of the world from my own, and I begin to see more and more brilliance in everyone. Thank you.
O Spirit of life and love, as we hold in our hearts the joys and sorrows that have been shared with us, let us take a few minutes in reflection, meditation, or prayer. In the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things. Let us fill our hearts with compassion towards ourselves and toward all living beings. The bell will mark the beginning of our meditation time, and we will end it by singing Spirit of Life. So what's in a minister? My first experience in a UU church was at Neighborhood Church in Pasadena. Neighborhood was a long-established institution housed in a beautiful building within a park-like setting. An old green bungalow served as the church offices. Minister Brandy Lovely was ordained at Harvard and wore his crimson robes to preach. The DRE was also a minister. There were substantial programs for children and adults. Neighborhood shaped my first expectations of UU ministry. You'll remember that my childhood was spent at the Catholic Church in Cloverdale. Well, neighborhood Sunday services were filled with glorious music and inspiring sermons. It's the work I did with the DRE that has stayed with me. Diane called her program Discovering a Personal Religion. Through activities and discussions, I found I could explore my values and define what religion meant to me. We were also encouraged to develop relationships with the ministers and to call on them in times of need. In my 42 years here at UU Santa Rosa, we grew from a small lay-led fellowship to a large multi-generation congregation. We've had a succession of ministers, and each of them came with a different skill set. These skills shaped their ministry and how they related to each of us. What I needed from a minister changed over the years as well. My outstanding memories were in times I needed pastoral care. My father died when Dan O'Neill was the minister. At Neighborhood, I was taught the first call you make after a death is to your minister. I called Dan and we sat together. My father was a difficult man and an alcoholic. He was an unabashed atheist while my mother was Catholic. What kind of service could we possibly have? Dan suggested a committal ceremony at the cemetery where his remains would be interred. He met with my mother, my sisters, and me and asked about Sumner. Then, on a windswept day, we gathered at the cemetery, and Dan spoke words honoring the man and comforting my family. Another time, my 7-year-old daughter, Julie, had an emergency appendectomy and was hospitalized for several days. When we arrived at the hospital one afternoon, Julie said, "Reverend Dan came to see me." I didn't expect it, and yet this incredibly thoughtful act has stayed with me over the years. Ministers also oversee the finances of the church. Some do this well, others prefer to turn this function over to the board and the finance committee. They supervise staff. This takes another leadership muscle. They create Sunday worship services, lead education and study groups, and represent the congregation in the community. Just listing the above, one realizes no one individual can possibly do it all. Reverend Chris used worship associates and lay chaplains to broaden his ministry. Today, we are encouraging you to think about the qualities you value in a minister. I will be curious to hear what this service brings up for you. As we present the rest of today's service, I hope you will enjoy this look back at our beloved minister, Dan O'Neill.
Someday we'll roll away the stone that we have carried for so long. All our burdens will be gone, and I can't wait. We will find our way to an understanding of all views. No prayer shall be refused, and I can't wait. It seems we have gone too far, and now we don't know where we are. I believe we'll find a guiding star, but I can't wait. If faith is the final place where all fears have been erased and the locks have fallen from the gates, I can't wait. Someday we'll roll away the stone that we have carried for so long. All our burdens will be gone, and I can't wait. We will find our way to an understanding of all views. No prayer shall be refused, and I can't wait.
Good morning. Dan O'Neill was our first called minister. He served the congregation from 1986 through 1996. He retired because he had cancer, and he lived for another year after he retired. His death was a great loss for our congregation. We are lucky enough to have copies of and even tapes of many of his sermons. In this time between ministers, it seemed appropriate to use one of Dan's sermons. In today's sermon, which he called "We'll Preach for Food," and an insider's thoughts on the ministry, he encourages us to think about our expectations of a minister, to make our expectations conscious, and to be mindful that the job of a minister is often overwhelming in its demands. I think you will find that his words are particularly timely. And now, Dan's words. I would never compare myself to Moses. I should be so holy. At most, I would have been the conduit for one or two of the commandments, 3 at max, and they would have certainly been the minor ones, like not coveting thy neighbor's ass. I've never been real big on donkeys anyway. And yet I find myself in the same guild as that venerable old leader. The profession I hold is an ancient one, going back to Mount Pisgah, Mount Sinai, and beyond. By calling, if not by nature, but by job description, I am the prophet, the shaman, the priest, the pilot of a people's religious life. At one time, I would have been mediating between the tribe and God, telling them God's ways and imploring the Most High not to give them immediate feedback concerning their often errant behaviors. Today, I am the part-time manager of a small nonprofit organization. with other major responsibilities in the areas of preaching, teaching, counseling, inspiring, conflict mediating, as well as being the priest as of old, who serves as mediator between the people and that which is the most holy to them. The job description varies from age to age, but at its core, the assignment is still the same: to help people order their ordinary lives in the light of this most extraordinary existence in which we live, to help them touch life at its innermost core, call that what you may, the numinous, the holy, the highest good, and to encourage them to live their lives in accordance with that core. Stated this way, the assignment entails a lot of doing, which it does. The list of tasks can at times seem unending, but that is only half the assignment. There is an even harder half, the being half. As a minister, my ultimate task is to so incorporate all the above into my own life that I more and more am what I espouse and what I encourage others to be and do. As such, it is a glorious and oftentimes exceedingly trying role, filled with multiple tensions which invigorate as well as enervate. In this way, it reflects the universe, which you may have noticed is very tense itself. That is, it creates itself and all its vibrancy and life by setting up innumerable polarities: control, receptivity, freedom, determinism, light, dark, rest, activity, and on and on. The vibrancy of the universe is created from these tensions. Just so, the vibrancy of this ancient profession of mine is created by living in the midst of numerous tensions, tensions which invigorate and enervate. Some of these tensions are comforting versus confronting. The pastoral role calls for one thrust, the prophetic for the other, and the whole scene is complicated by the fact that the very people who are one's clients, to use modern day terminology, are simultaneously one's bosses, with direct control over compensation and employment. The resulting tension is indeed invigorating. Another tension, introversion versus extroversion. Many of us go into the ministry because we are inclined toward matters interior, matters of the spirit, of theology, of philosophy. I myself measure out as an introvert on personality tests like the Myers-Briggs. Ironically, we then find ourselves in a very public role, often expected to be in the center of activity. The resulting tension is invigorating. And then there's the tension between the sacred and the secular. There is a common tendency to go overboard in one of these dimensions. Many pastors in other denominations have to struggle with grounding their members in the real world instead of the by and by. In our denomination, the struggle is usually in the opposite direction. We are one of the few clergy in the world that have to tread lightly in advocating matters of the sacred, even though that is our traditional function. A most invigorating tension, this one. For today's talk, though, I want to elaborate on just two important and invigorating tensions inherent in the ministry. The first one I want to focus on is the tension between being and doing. The parish ministry is one of the last generalist professions. The one job includes numerous roles, some wildly different from one another, such as public speaker and counselor and administrator. Because we are lucky enough to have a tape of the sermon, we know that at this point, Dan goes off script and has an informal conversation with the congregation, something that's possible in a smaller congregation. He introduces something called the Alban exercise, which you may see on the screen, I hope. Something happened to that slide, huh? I guess. We'll do it a different way. What you should have seen is 10 roles which a minister is usually expected to fill. Your job, it's a little activity to do, is to distribute 10 points among these roles according to your own priorities in a minister. There must be at least one role of the 10 with a minimum of 4 points, and there must be no less than 2 points for any role you choose. So you have 10 points and you clearly can't choose all the 10. He explains then each role briefly. The first role is catalyst ringleader, the person who conceives of, organizes, and gets going all groups and activities. The second is manager administrator, the one who oversees hiring and all business aspects of the congregation. The third is participant, the one who is involved in everything. The next is pastor counselor, the one who meets privately with congregants. The next is pillar of the community, a visible and respected spokesperson. Preacher, teacher, one who explores matters of the Spirit and offers them through preaching and teaching. Priest, one who helps people through life transitions such as birth, marriage, and death. Prophet, who goes beneath the surface and cries out what's going wrong. Social activist who engages in efforts to bring about social justice. And spiritual guide, the last, one who helps congregants to develop a spiritual life through worship, meditation groups, discussion groups, and the like. So you have 10 points to distribute between these roles. Since we don't have them on the screen, we won't take a few minutes for you to do this exercise. But I think it's worth thinking about. I'm not going to ask you about your choices now, but it should make for interesting conversation during coffee hour. These are the main points that Dan draws from the activity and from the discussion. The first is how very different people's expectations and priorities are. The second is the importance of making these expectations conscious. And the third is one person cannot be expected to do all of these things. And so we need to be co-ministers for each other. Dan continues. Having such a wide variety of roles to choose from is energizing and exciting, but it is also fatiguing and stress-producing. I don't recall ever being bored even once in these last 9 years of doing ministry, whereas I recall that deadening phenomenon many times in previous professions. But there's a downside too. It is extremely unlikely that any one person will be uniformly skilled in all of these different roles. Just as it is extremely unlikely that anyone would be able to fit all of these roles into a reasonable schedule. Many ministers I know do attempt to do all of these things. They accomplish this by working all the time, no days off, little vacation, and by carrying a fair amount of tension and sense of impending overwhelm with them. And the truth is that members of the congregation generally seem to want their ministers to function in all of these roles. It makes life easier to look to just one person to fulfill all these needs. The word from older ministers is that the situation is getting more and more difficult as the years go by. As society breaks down more and more, they say, there is an increased need for the ministries that the church can offer, even while families find it harder and harder to offer the resources of time and money back to the church to create those ministries. And of course, the whole operation is only barely understood by all concerned. The different roles are, in fact, not usually identified by either minister or congregation. Instead, the scenario unfolds unconsciously, with many ministers attempting to do everything, and with many members feeling vaguely dissatisfied that their minister doesn't seem to be doing everything they want. This is accentuated by the pressure to fulfill current popular models of the ministry, such as those elaborated by Cobb and Huff. Some of these are master teacher, builder, caretaker, and multi-skilled manager. If one is inclined, if one is inclined toward the teacher-preacher role, for instance, instead of being the currently popular role of multi-skilled manager or CEO model, great tension can be produced. This is a dangerous situation. In our little PCD district alone, I count 7 ministers in the last 5 years who have been asked to leave by their congregations under less than favorable circumstances. But perhaps the greatest source of tension is that amidst all the above, what tends to get focused on is all the doing, which the ministry involves, when, unless I am very mistaken, it is the minister's being that is actually wanted. Yes, the different tasks have to be done, certainly, but the primary thing we want from a minister is their essence. We want someone who has fed their own life through the fire of life's inner core and who lives more and more with visible evidence of having encountered the depths of life. The irony is that the constant focus on doing actually hinders the development of being. As Rebecca Parker says, this is an enormous loss, for it deprives the religious community of people who are prepared to think deeply, critically, prophetically, and imaginatively about life, and to live from these places of depth. What to do? First of all, make all of this conscious. Have both minister and congregation get clear on what they mutually want. And since virtually all of the ministerial roles need to be done, the next thing to do is to determine which are to be done by the ordained minister, which require the hiring or calling of additional staff or ministers, and which need to be accomplished by the congregation in its role as co-ministers. This scenario is not just second choice, by the way. What an exciting option, with everybody sharing their unique gifts, ministering to one another. That would seem to me to be the church at its very best. The second major tension which creates vitality is that of role versus person. Every job has a role which comes with it. The role is certainly shaped and personalized by the person occupying it, but the role exists quite apart from the person also. When you go to the supermarket, the clerk set there plays a role. If you met in other circumstances, such as neighbors, they would play a different role. Think of your job now and think what your role might be and how you put on that role when you are at work. Now, I said earlier that this calling of professional ministry is an ancient one. The profession of computer programmers has been in existence maybe 40 years. Psychologists, maybe 100. Ministers, shaman, priests, many millennia, as far back as human memory extends. The role carries thousands and thousands of years of memories and expectations. I'm reminded of this forcefully whenever I'm taking a plane trip and I make the mistake of actually telling the person next to me what my profession is. Sometimes I just say that I'm a manager of a small nonprofit. But I remember one trip several years ago where, after I revealed my career, I immediately lost my existence as Dan, the person that I am. Instead, for the next 2,000 miles, I was this one man's childhood Lutheran minister. On the one hand, I resent this submersion of my personhood to my role, but I've come to accept it as inevitable and natural. I even find myself doing it occasionally with other ministers. The point is that thousands of years of collective memory are concentrated into this role of ministry. The congregation which calls a minister officially confers on all of that memory contained in that role upon their minister. There is great power in this conferred role. I experience this power when I make hospital visits, when I speak from this pulpit, when I officiate at sites of passage, when I deal with your most intimate experiences. It is a power that comes through me, you see, intimately intertwined with who I am, but not synonymous. These powers belong to you, the congregation, and to the shared tradition going back thousands of years to which you belong. I am granted their use. They exist apart from the particular minister who utilizes them at any given time. They transfer to any minister who is called to this role. This is both exhilarating and potent, as well as dangerous and deceiving. I've just spoken of the potent and the exhilarating part. There is a great added dimension that comes with me when I take the hand of someone lying sick in a hospital bed, a power flowing through me from this whole congregation and the millennia of tradition to which you belong. But it can be dangerous and deceiving. Dangerous when any of us forget about the difference between role and person. This can happen by either of us. The minister can forget this main source of their power and begin to believe that they themselves contain all the potency. The congregant can likewise forget and begin to confuse the parson with the person. Much of the tragedy of clergy sexual abuse comes from these confusions. It is incumbent upon ministers to not abuse their roles and the power that goes with it. It is wise for the congregant to not transfer the power of the role to the person occupying the role. Now I will make a bold statement, but one which I feel is true. This may even sound contradictory to what I just said about the importance of separating the role from the person. Although it is extremely important to remember that the person and the role are distinct, it is nevertheless virtually impossible to virtually separate the role from the person within the congregational context. When you come to know a person as a minister, it cannot be expected that you have full access to them as a person apart from that role. The two are that intertwined. The role can never be fully discarded by either party. This can make the ministry a rather lonely profession, the one area in which others grant you the profound privilege of sharing their greatest intimacies is one in which you do not and cannot share your own great intimacies. Those intimacy needs must be met outside the system, which confers this profoundly privileged role. This is why ministers find it vitally important to be a part of systems in which they are not the priest or the pastor. This can only happen outside the church of which they are the minister. But for all its dangerousness, this is a profoundly privileged role. I am privileged each and every time one of you brings me into the tenderness of your deep pain or into the exhilaration of your great joy. I feel privileged to learn from you, as I always do, about how to live in community and how to live life with wisdom. I feel deeply privileged to be given the assignment of exploring matters of great importance and actually being listened to with care and attention numerous times a month. And finally, I feel privileged, just like Moses and all the ministers before and after him, to be invited occasionally up to a mountaintop to see the glory of the Most High and to feel my soul ignited by the holy fire. When I experience great moments of ecstasy with you, sharing your joy and your excitement or your learnings, I find myself on that mountaintop, for the holy is there. I, for a while, feel myself on fire. When I experience death and great grief with you, I find myself on that mountaintop, for the holy is there too. I, for a while, feel myself on fire. When I plumb my own depths to see what's at the bottom of it all, I ironically find myself on the mountaintop, for the holy is there too. I discover myself on fire. This being on fire is why I do the ministry. In speaking about Moses, Buechner says, when God puts the finger on someone, their troubles have just begun. I wouldn't argue with that statement for a second, but something else begins too. A life privileged by the power of a tradition, by the trust of a people, and by the ignition of the interior kindling of passion and yearning. I begin this 9th year as your minister with a sense of anticipation, gratitude, and hope. We have accomplished much together in the last decade and have successfully navigated some potentially dicey territory. We have an exciting future before us, particularly during this coming watershed year in our history. It is important work we do together in an ancient tradition. Let us continue this work, exploring the depths and heights of this life together, ministering to each other in times of need, sharing with each other in times of joy, offering each other our precious gifts. So be it. This is my fault.
Close. See, I already missed one hymn for you. Okay, we invite you to rise in body or spirit as you are able for our closing hymn, number 311, Let It Be a Dance. This was a particular favorite of Reverend Davis. Now, if this works, please listen to the words of Reverend Dan O'Neill as he presents the benediction in his own voice.
There is so much to know, so much to love, so much to share. Let us go forth this day and minister. There are forsaken elements within each of us, abandoned dreams, neglected fears, breast closet skeletons, tremendous possibilities as yet untapped. Let us minister to ourselves. There are broken relationships among people. Friends we need to touch, partners we need to love, enemies we need to forgive. Let us minister to each other. There is sorrow in the land, war, pollution, injustice, a tragic squandering of immense wealth. Let us minister to our world. And there's a forgotten cry within us all, a deafening silence, largely unheeded, but ever back home, home, home it calls, an explosion of joy waiting to be born. Let us minister to our source. There is so much to know, so much to love, so much to share. Let us go forth this day and minister. Go do it.
Ah, such memories. Please enjoy the postlude. And blessings to all of you.
Here we go. Next slide. Okay, let's have some fun, guys.